Sleep? What is that? I don't know anything about getting any sleep. I definitely didn't sleep 11 hours and sleep through my alarm and get to work late last night. What are you talking about? I would never do any such thing. I went to sleep as soon as stream ended, and I didn't wake up until I was supposed to be at work. 11 hours later. That's what. So, yeah. It's all good. It's fine. Bruh. Yeah, I mean, partially because there's actually things to stream now. Like, now that the vertical slice is finished, like, I could stream a lot of the stuff that was for the vertical slice. I don't know. I didn't feel like any of that stuff was worth worth streaming. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean that is also true. I just also did not have the energy. I mean, also at that point, like right after early 2025 is when I moved, and I moved back to my hometown, and I transferred locations of where I was working, and it was a very, honestly, mostly stressful time. So I just did not have the mental energy a lot at that point, so it's just taking me a while to get resettled and whatnot. Yeah. How did I filter? I forget. I see. Oh, copy this boy, because yeah, it works. I do it again. Weird. Alright, in theory, we should see the sphere moving with the Grav lift, which it does, just like it does on everything else. And then if we overlap with it, it don't do anything. That's great. I love that. Oh, it was working. I just had debug message off. Why do I ever doubt my code? Should have just trusted it. Oh, my bad. Thank you. I'm so bad about turning that off. You missed it, Mr. Lonely. You were in the gameplay video this morning. You were getting absolutely trashed on. Nerd. Okay, so clearly that's not enough force for some reason. Oh, bruh. Why? Bruh. Okay, that's something. Yeah, we're working on Grav list. So I mean, we got something working here. You know, yeah, now it's applying force. I don't know why I have to multiply the force by such an insanely high value. It almost seems like adding force in GMC, I have to multiply it by like 10 or 10,000 times what I actually want it to be. It's so weird. What do you mean, what am I working on? It's the stream title. Now I just realized this may not work the way I was hoping it would. Purely because of the GMC. The zipline method worked because it's something that the player locally interacts with. Whereas this method might not work for grav lifts. I guess for now it's fine, and we can worry about that at a later date. Okay. For now, what I really want to figure out is we need obviously variables for lift force, which will be a float. Max velocity. Bruh. And then we also want another value for centering force. So for centering force, we want this to be a value between 0. So now if we compile, we can control it what we want. Max velocity for now we'll just put at like 30,000 units, and then lift force we're gonna put this at 15, and we can set the units to meters per second. Like never actually used. Probably should. So the max velocity was 30. So we should get get world location. And then we should find just find location closest to world. Actually, we don't want to find the location. We want to find tangent closest to our location, because that will become our direction. And then we multiply this by our lift force, multiplied by, for some reason, 10,000. We plug this in. That should give us basically only exactly what we need for... Oh, alright, well, that's great. Okay, let's make sure we normalize this tangent first. There we go. It did indeed send me up. So yeah, okay, we have that working, which in theory, that's always the thing, isn't it? If we click and drag this to the right and then like drag this upwards, I don't know if we'll make it all the way there because gravity is gonna definitely push us. Can I tell the spline to be visible in game? That way I can see its path. I cannot. I'd have to put a mesh in it. In theory, we should be able to go up. Oh gosh, we should be able to go up this zip line and then, yeah. Ooh, okay, so it's fighting gravity. Interesting. Oh, okay, it kind of works. Not really though. That's the question. Do we negate the force of gravity? Basically adding on... I don't remember. There is a value for getting the force of gravity, but I think we can just search in class defaults, grab the key. All right. I think it's in the project. No, not plugin. Project setting. Gravity. Default Z gravity. Yes. I guess we just add a constant negative 980, and that should always counteract the force of gravity. I don't know if that'll actually work. I guess the best way to test this would be to just make the zip line horizontal. And if we walk into this, I feel like I'm being accelerated towards the ground. Oh, ha, I am, because we're adding negative 90, not positive. Or 980. I'm still falling towards the ground. Interesting. Why is that? I'm adding a... Oh. Alright, well, that's... I'm just flying now. Oh. It's because it needs to be 980 with frickin' 2 more zeros on it. So stupid, dude. Yeah. Alright, that's kind of dumb. What do you mean? Oh, like now it's 341, but if I click play, it'll be 342. That's because of Epic Online Services. So if I'm not logged into Epic Online Services, it just essentially like gives me an ID because it doesn't have an account to log me into, so it just gives me a number. So if I were to log in, I mean, I could log into the developer authentication pool, and then it would give me my name, it would give me Captain Cake. But hey, it's not my fault of the code. It's whatever stupid reason force in GMC is like, I have to make it 10 times what I would normally would, because the units in Unreal by default are centimeters. The difference is, for some reason in GMC, force is in millimeters per second, which is really stupid. Centimeters is for the win. That's what it should be. I mean, technically it should be in meters. That would make more sense for it to be in meters, but whatever. Centimeters is what majority of game engines use, so it's what I'd stick with. Much as I love freedom units, I will say... That's crazy. Yeah, as much as I love freedom units, I will say I do prefer metric. As a self-proclaimed engineer, metrics are much easier to work with when doing anything engineering related. 4.5 football field. Metric's so much easier to work with. Everything's just divisible by 10 or multiplied by 10. Like, Imperial, we've got 16ths of an inch, and then there's 12 inches in a foot, and there's 3 feet in a yard, and then there's however many yards in a mile, but there's 5,285 feet. Yeah, that sounds right. 5,285 feet in a mile. Like, that's such an obscure number. Like, I feel like Fahrenheit and Imperial units are all based off of just feel, whereas metric is actually based off of like scientific stuff. Like 1 cubic centimeter, or I think a centimeter is one ounce of water, 1 cubic ounce of water. So yeah, it seems like America was just like, I mean, for Fahrenheit, I will say I prefer Fahrenheit because that's how temperature feels rather than how, like, whereas Celsius, it's the boiling and freezing temperature of water. Like that, metric is very scientific. Imperial is very feeling vibe. It's just, you know, hey, look at my foot. Yeah, that's a measurement right there. So metric for measurement, Fahrenheit for temperatures, but I prefer actually. Because you tell me what I don't know, 8 times, I guess it's not that hard. I was gonna say 8 times a half an inch is, which that's just 40, that's basic. Yeah. I did a lot of engineering stuff in high school, and I still do, so I tend to use metric. That's all I'm trying to say. I will say we can't really test curved grav lifts until I get this this centering force finished, because that centering force is basically going to be how strongly you get pulled to the center. I don't know what water boils at. I think it's like 325 or something like that. Now, I will say the freezing water, like, why is 0? You're gonna finger it out? That's crazy. But like, why? I don't like. Okay, with American temperature stuff, I can understand why 100 is what it is, because 100 is just blistering hot. Okay, that makes sense. It feels like 100. All right, it feels hot out. But why is it that cold is like? I would assume you would still stick with the freezing point of water being 0. To me, that would still make sense, because that's when you start getting things like snow and whatnot. So I would honestly think a better temperature system would be 100 is feeling really hot out, which I think is what, like 35 Celsius or something like that. And then I would keep 0 as the freezing point of water, because that's a very visual thing. You can see snow at 32 degrees. So I don't know. Complete weather and temperature system confirmed for Onyx. What? Speaking of weather, I will give you guys, you know, this is normally something I would prefer to keep quiet, but you guys are the only two here, I think. So, and it doesn't matter anyways, because it's not going to happen like a year. Oh, 212. Yeah, that sounds about right. I was never good at converting between Celsius and Fahrenheit because I never cared about temperature. I can convert between like millimeters and centimeters and inches and stuff. I got pretty decent at that. I don't know if I still have it quite as good as I used to, but in Donkey Kong, yeah, humidity, I'll say I live in very high like at whatchamacallit, elevation. So I have very low humidity and it is wonderful here. I know what K is. Oh, that's funny. That's funny it's not showing up in the chat, but it'll show up in the stream chat. That's funny. Let me go see if I the stream chat. That's funny. Oh, it's not even giving me the ability to, like, I guess because I wasn't in, like, on. Oh, I bet Illinois is. I've never been to Illinois, but I've heard that it can get pretty bad. Now, I will say, winters here suck. So here's my predicament with these grav lifts. If we think about this in a purely straight grav lift. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Especially with the mountain I live next to. Pretty popular mountain. That should tell you enough about where I live. Probably. I don't think an avalanche really. Like, I'm pretty close to it, but I don't think an avalanche. Oh, we got mountains. They're beautiful. I'll have to see if I can find a nice photo on my phone. But I think I took one a couple weeks ago of the mountains because we've also been having a lot of fires here. Oh, we do not get tornadoes. I don't even know the last time we had a tornado warning. You know, I don't know that I actually have any photos in the mountains by my apartment. You know what? This is a good photo. I'm sharing this to the general chat. If my phone will let me share to Discord. Are you kidding me? There it is. I was just blind. Hey, my family used to live in Tornado Alley, so I didn't. That was before I was born, but my parents used to live in Tornado Alley. Anyways, I just sent it to the general chat. That's give or take what the mountains and all look like. Now, it's a really, really high FOV. I took it at 0.6 wide, but pretty beautiful to see those mountains, let me tell you. Anyways, back to the grav lifts. My predicament is this. If we say we have a perfectly vertical grav lift, and let's just say that it always adds a constant force going, right? You know, that makes sense because it's a grav lift pushing in one direction. I think so. Let me look this up. Only the brake. Oh, yeah. That took place not in the same state as I. That's literally... I'm not even joking to you, Mr. Lonely. I've been trying to find the name of that movie. I think. Unless I already have it on my list. No, I've been slowly creating a watch list of like all the movies I used to watch as like a kid and whatnot. Just movies that I've been seeing clips of. That's not as old as I thought it was. but I have been trying to figure out because I saw a few clips of that earlier this week. I forgot the name of the movie, so thank you for that. No, that was in Arizona. But we did have a pretty bad fire just south of us. That was like just I don't know if it was just as bad as that movie, but it was a pretty bad fire. It's been like it's been smoky here because of it. Like I could almost not see the mountains because of how smoky it was. Anyways, back to grav lift. So the issue is if the grav lift is always adding a constant upwards force, that's fine. Or you know, in the case of a curved grav lift, because I'm gonna allow that for honestly the first grav lift on one of the new maps is a curved grav lift, so I want to make sure this feels good. It's always gonna add the force, you know, in the direction of the grav lift, and that's just a pushing force. I also want like a deceleration slash centering force, as I'm calling it, where it tries to keep the player in the middle. And the issue with this is, you know, how much do you slow the player down? Because do you slow the player, like if they, let's say that this dot is the player's velocity, the player's location. If they're flying towards the grav lift, do you just stop them as soon as they get to the center and then just push them upwards and they're locked to the center of it, almost like a zip line where they're just perfectly locked to this location? Or do you, like, as they fly in, do you like slow them down and then they kind of like slowly kind of get to the center? Or like, do you just like slow them down and then pull them to the center? That was terrible. Push them upwards. See what I mean? Oh, so where I live, we had a very bad year, or a bad year of, or a bad winter, I should say. We had a bad winter and a pretty bad spring, so we did not get a lot of precipitation. So it's been very dry here, and we've been having fires all around the state. So but anyways, yeah, so like, see, that's the thing, is a mix of both I think is what is gonna be good, because I guess here's the question. I have the variable on here called centering. I should call this centering strength, not centering force. Centering strength. Yeah. Because if this is a value of 0, basically I'm not going to apply any center. It'll function exactly, it'll function exactly like it is right now, where I can just run in. Goodness, I have the hiccups. Hate that. I can just essentially run into it and I get some force, but I just go out the other side. You know, there is no centering. Goodness gracious. And then yeah, a value of 1 is what I'm trying to figure out. Like, is the value of 1 where it just immediately pulls you to the center and that's it? You have no freedom, essentially. Or, when again, that's where it comes in. Does the centering just immediately pull you to the center, or does it just stop you from getting to the edge? That's what I was kind of thinking about while I was thinking about this at work today. So I was like, you know, I think it would make more sense, because on one hand, I would think for a grav lift, when I'm thinking about like the gameplay of the ideal gameplay in my head, what I think is it should pull you to the center, because that makes sense. You don't want, like, for the art thing, like, you'll have the grav lift right here, and then you'll actually have like a ring around it that's kind of like powering it, and that, like, there's multiple rings around the lift. You'll see. So like, there's gonna be geometry around the grav lift, so I don't want players to be able to float, like, let's say this red is the player. I don't want players to be able to go float outside this ring, because otherwise they'll bump into that collision and it's gonna feel bad. So ideally, it should at the very least stop them from going towards the edge of the grav lift. So it should, like, this is a very terrible top down, but whatever. You know, let's say they come flying in perfectly centered, they should slow down and then get pulled back to the center, and that's where, you know, they get like pulled up. But then, and I think that would feel best, because I think instead of them just going into the zip line or into the grav lift and then just immediately slowing down to the center. Yeah, and I think the other big thing that I was thinking of too is like, yeah, if they are just locked to the center, that does just feel weird. And then also you think about other game mode items, you know, grenades, pickups and stuff. That's going to look better. Like, let's say you throw a grenade in the grav lift, that's going to feel better for it to go like this and kind of like wiggle back and forth in the middle. If you throw a grenade into a grav lift and it just perfectly gets stuck, excuse me, goodness gracious, if it just gets perfectly stuck in the center, that's going to feel like, it's going to feel stiff. That's not going to feel dynamic. And so if I'm going to maintain that for the grenades, I should also keep that for the player. But I also don't want the player to go in here and be constantly like bouncing back and forth like a spring, like a poorly tuned spring. I don't want them to just be like doom 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 as they go up it. So I could, because I already will be having different logic. Like, this logic is only going to run for the player, whereas the other logic, because it's not predicted like network logic, it's just going to run normally in the tick. So it will have two separate like code locations, but I just figure if I'm going to make, just like the zip lines, like I just want to make one function called like add force to object, and then it just, everything else gets handled. Now we could have two forces acting on the player. One is the deceleration force from the edge, and that's just if the player's velocity is going away from the center, then we just always apply this deceleration force. That way they can never exit the lift, and that'll be controlled by that 0 to 1 value. And then we have the centering force, which actually is the force responsible for pushing them directly to the center. And I think maybe that could be good. And then, so, because then actually these two forces would technically function independently, because the deceleration force would only function if the player is like, if their velocity is going away from the center. So like if they're sitting right here and they're moving this direction, it'll apply that direct force to slow them down. And then, you know, once they come to a stop, then that centering force will take over and push them towards them. And that's where, you know, that 0 to 1 value will kind of play around with and find a good default, and then just either we always use that value, or, you know, each map has a different vibe. Probably most dev maps will all use the same value, but then in like Atlas and stuff, when people are creating custom maps, they can change that value. They really have the feel certain. So I think that's the best way to do it. A deceleration force, and then the centering force, which actually just applies velocity to center. So I think what we're going to need to do is because I'm trying to think. Yes, it makes sense to only apply the deceleration if they're past the center point. We're going to redraw this because this is a very horrible drawing, and I want it to be bigger. So let's just say that this is the ring of the grav lift, and let's go back to using red for the player. Obviously, use a dark blue as like center point. Obviously, if the player is right here, gosh, that's a big player. If the player's right here and they're moving in this direction, it makes sense to decelerate them. But then we have to ask the question, what if they're like at the edge and they're like, you know, the player's right here with their velocity going like this. Basically, I feel like you would expect them to almost come into the middle like a spiral. That way they're maintaining velocity. I don't know how you code that with a physics simulation though. Because in theory, with the math we were just talking about, they should in theory be immediately stopped. This, like, all their velocity would get stopped going this direction. And then they would just immediately get just the center force, which I don't think would feel good. Well, I guess they would actually enter from this point. And since their velocity... So I guess actually, yeah, they probably would get some kind of... Actually, that would work out. Let's try it. Stop yapping and just code it. So... Let's try this. Let's create a function. Get... The other question is, how do we determine the actual amount of force to center them with? Is it based off of time? Like, do we want to center them over a certain amount of time, or do we just want to apply a constant force until they're centered? That's another thing to think about, but we'll figure that out when we get to it. We'll call this get acceleration, get edge decel force, I guess. The inputs, we want to have location and velocity. And then obviously we have our center. This is just a simple multiplier. So we figure out the code and then multiply it. And then we figure out we want to get the find location close. Gosh. Nope. So we just want to get the input location, find the closest location on the spline that we figure out, you know, our stuff. And then we want to use, I guess we also technically need a new variable here for the radius, because we'll be able to customize the radius. Maybe. See, the thing is I want to give creative maps a huge amount of control. Because, you know, in Halo, everything is just... You have specific size things, and you just have to make it work. But it's like, what if I want a grav lift that's, you know, 20 meters wide, and that's literally the custom game mode, is everyone's in the grav lift shooting each other. So it's like, you know, you're trying to like throw grenades across this grav lift or something, you know, like that could be interesting, I guess. So it's like, I feel like I would want to allow them to change the radius of said grav lift. Or like maybe you want a grav lift that is at, like, you're creating, let's say, a Halo map in Onyx, and you want the Covenant to have like a giant grav lift beam and you want vehicles to be able to drive into it, you know, I feel like being able to control the regular, good idea. So we'll set this to 15. Not 15.5 meters. Then we need to find the distance. Or is that already a function? No. Oh, I could be doing this the entire time. Oh well. We want to find the distance between the input location and the object. Technically, we should also take the object's size into account. That way, because right now we're just looking at the center of the player. So if we take like these 3 grids, we're just taking the center of the player. I think that'll be fine for most cases. But ideally, you would also want the bounding box that we math based off the bounding box size of the object. But whatever. Anyways, take the distance. That'll return how far we are from the center of the grav lift. And we can divide this by the radius. Radius multiplied by 100 in order to take it from meters to. Hey, Mr. Denmark, dude. What's in between centimeters and that, like, not decimal, but like, is there a measurement for 10 centimeter? I assume there is. I just don't know. Like, I know it's not like there is, but is there? We're gonna print this out with this D-cell and then we'll just call this. Plug that into there. Get velocity. That bad boy in. And then see what value this gives. So we should be about, yep, 1. Yeah, okay, that is printing out exactly what I expected. Perfect. Because basically what we need to do in order to drive this acceleration force, what we need to do is we only want to counteract the velocity going towards the edge. I need paint again. I have to like visualize this math. I don't know why this math is hurting me more than typical, but my thing is, yeah, if the player comes in at a really steep angle, we want to start accelerating them immediately. We are working on Grav lifts. So if you see here, we've got this spline. Basically, what I'm doing is all of the stuff in the new version of Onyx, Gen 3, is basically going to be spline based, just because I think that just allows for a lot more creativity. Now, yes, it makes my job harder, because now I need to make sure all the physics and the math and stuff work for a spline. A linear 0 to 1 value from just start to end finish, that's really easy. But, you know, like we did with the zip lines, you know, it's a little harder to get it, but we got it. Now for grav lifts, that's a little bit more of like a physics-based thing, because I'm just always adding force. All right, shot. And so what we're working on right now is, like I explained to them, if you have the curved zip line like we've got in the test, like we have in the test level, it'll always have a constant force that's adding in the direction of the grav lift. That makes sense. It's always pushing in the direction of the lift. That makes sense. That's not hard. We already have that working right now. The issue is if the player just goes and flies, like, imagine this dot or this line that I'm drawing is the player. If, you know, like you do in games like Halo, you know, you come sprinting into this grav lift. If you're going too fast, you might just fly out the other side, which is currently what happens. Like, if I just sprint slide through this, I get some velocity and then I kind of just fly through it. Now, yes, most maps they're gonna have some geometry on the other side of this. You know, there's gonna be like a wall for you to run into, and you could just let the wall stop you. However, I don't think that that's how, one, I want my grav lift to work, and two, you're not always going to have that wall. You know, maybe this grav lift is in the middle of the open and it's pulling you up to a base or something. You know, using the Covenant as an example, you look at Truth and Reconciliation in Halo 1, and it's just a grav lift sitting. Like, there is nothing on the backside of it. So I need to make sure that this works for, because again, this needs to work for creative maps. So I need to make sure that this works as intended for creative maps. So basically, what we were talking about is, I think we need to have two forces. We need to have like a deceleration force that if the player's flying towards the, you know, let's say the player's right here and they're moving towards the edge of this grav lift, it needs to be applying a counter force that slows the player down as they get towards the edge. So like the amount that the player gets decelerated is directly proportional to their velocity as they get. So at the edge, if the player is sitting at the edge, it should be applying 100% counter force. So their velocity should be just completely zeroed out. But the question is, if this is a value of 1, where does the value of 0 start? Now, the easiest answer is the value of 0 starts at the center. You don't accelerate the player until they get past the point. But I don't know if that's too late. I think that's just what we're gonna roll with, because to me right now, I can't think of any other way to do it. So we're just gonna try that. So this is the center point currently. So if we take the dot product of no, we need to do get unit direction. You are not first. And we do the dot product from this, and then we get velocity. And if we normalize the velocity. Then we do the dot product of these two. So the dot product of the velocity to the direction center, or if the player's location is here and their velocity is this, I guess it doesn't matter what order we do it in, but we want to figure out the dot product. Yeah, I don't think it matters. Because then this would be if the dot product is greater than 0.5. We'll just print out this value. We're going to go into slow motion for this. Actually, we can do this even better. We can do debug, draw line. Line start would be this position. Duration would be 0 seconds. Like 1. The line end would be this location. Line color would be, and then I am also going to very temporarily add some debug code in my player controller. Debug, let's go with R. If we press R, it'll flip-flop. Set global dilation. First 1.1. This way I don't have to do any command line stuff. Yeah, okay, that works. If I come slide, I didn't even slide. If I come sliding into this, yeah, I think that's working. Kind of hard to debug this. I should probably get a mesh. That way we can actually see what's going on. I mean, I guess technically good. We just go steal that from zipline and scale up the zipline. Is that possible? You know what? We gonna try it. And then if we just make the relative transform. Oh. Let's just works. Quick update mesh. Yep, we get the zipline. Now if we make relative transform, and if we set the X and Y scale to something like 1/5, I think that should scale it up. All right. Well, we can't. So, in that case, let's just go to Blender. Bruh. While we wait for that to update. Trying to figure out, because we only want to apply force in the direction I know there's a function here. All right, there's Blender. Yep, cool. That works. I do not care to save this file, but I do want to import it. FBX files. We'll go model world. Why is it not organized by name? Call this temp Grav lift. import this. Cool. Now let's find a good kind of. You know what? We're just gonna throw the shield here. We should need some shield base. Sure. And then we need to come to all of these and set this to 500. Made it 5 all. And I just realized we already have to go edit. Because if we click update mesh, it's going to spawn them all straight because they don't have any vertices to be able to edit. Guess it's not. But not exactly the way. So let's do Control R, add 20 cuts. It's so instinctive to say. Crap. Let's just import. Interesting. Oh, right. It needs to be on X. That's what. There we go. That's a little more like what I was expecting. We'll have to fix these, like these edge cases. And the only thing I don't actually know is how to get it to be a radius. And Unreal is frozen after I just tried to save. Great. Good news. Love that. Oh, appreciate that. I swear if it crashes, I'm gonna freak out. Good. I ain't worrying about this. It's just a temp mesh. I know the diameter is 3 meters, so let's just set that in here. There we go. Not exactly the most beautiful looking grav lift, but it's fine. I think actually if we want to do shields, I'm going to do this one. Because that's a little easier on that. But you can't see. I do. Oh wait, no. I just need kind of a slightly material that. Is it? I mean, oh, that's way better. Now, yeah, we can't see the insides. An editor thing. Well. Hippity hoppity, your material is now my property. Matt _ temp Grav. And we open up this and go down. Cited. So now if we come mesh again, cool, got it. And we disable. We re-enable hidden in game for this sphere. Now, in theory, yes. All right, so yeah, you see, we don't. Mr. Lonely, are you still here? How good are you with vector math? Trying to Google this. Trying to find the math for negating velocity in a specific direction. I don't know that I've ever actually done. That makes sense. Apparently, I take this direction and I dot product it against the not normalized velocity. And that should return me a value that's equal to the length of the velocity in that direction, if that makes sense. Let's go at like, I guess let's go just straight into it. Huh. Okay, yeah, indeed it does. And then we use this and we just then multiply this in the negated direction. And this gives us our opposing velocity to slow the player down. So in theory, if we multiply this then by our centering strength, this should be our deceleration velocity. So, and this is just a completely opposing velocity. So I think that means we should slow down over the course of a single second because we're adding the force. I don't even know if that's doing it. Oh, once again, we have to multiply this by 100, which is stupid. I don't know why I split that. Now we should feel this doing something. I felt like it did something. But now if we instead do add impulse, in theory, it just stops us completely and then immediately accelerates us out the other direction. Still didn't do anything. Goodness gracious. What is going on? I'm an idiot. Our centering strength is 0. So we're literally multiplying. Bear with me, guys. It's late. Okay, so if our centering strength is now 1, we should immediately slow down. Maybe not immediately, but it did slow us down. I could feel it. And if we do impulse, yes, it should slow us down. And then if we do this little bit of code, Yeah. So let's just say if this is below 0, instead of if this is below 0, or I guess if this is above 0. So only if this is above 0 do we want to apply any kind of impulse or whatever. Why is it shooting me into the ground? That makes no sense. Maybe this one doesn't be. I mean, that's doing something. Definitely not what it should be doing. But I feel like I need to make another test to figure out this acceleration. Like I feel like I almost need to do something like this, where it's like on enter, get the velocity of the movement component. And then do negate and just literally apply the... I need to make sure if I need to... Oh shoot, I need to do add custom impulse. I don't know. This is where the physics issue arise. In theory, the math's somewhat simple. Huh. That is very much not what's supposed to happen. So let me just make sure I'm not doing anything special in this add custom impulse. Nope, it's just sent. So that means that we do not need to be multiplying this by 100. We just need to be plugging this straight in. Feel like from what I'm looking up, this math looks proper. Should apply. And if this should apply, then we do that. If not, then we do that. Oh, I still need to take the... I need to disable this. We are going to turn down this lift force to like 5 seconds. And we're going to make this wider, because it's really hard to see if it's doing what I want on a very... Actually, we're going to bring a new one in here. I just want to do it on a completely... That's a zip line. On a complete vertical one. And then we're going to come back to Blender. We're going to set this radius to like 10 and re-export it. Can the Grav lift go down? No. I guess if you point it downwards, it can. But it's a lift, so it's supposed to lift you up. All right, so apparently, oh, it's because I still have it on 15. Set this, and that's sent back to 1. Try this now. You know, now that I'm thinking about this, Mr. Lonely, this is what we just talked about, isn't it? I also can't get out of this lift because going around the edge is just gonna make me constantly spin around in a circle. So this is kind of what we just talked about, where we were saying having it kind of spiral around would feel good for grenades. Now that I'm thinking about it, my braking code from this... Okay, well, apparently not if I went that far out. Okay, I can escape it. It's not letting me... Actually, no, it is letting me, because, again, it's not taking in my player width. So, maybe I should make it take in the width of the object that it's affecting. But yeah, if I run at, like, a very steep angle like this... I can never exit the lift. I'm always staying on the edge. So technically, because we only have deceleration force, you see the center of my player is never going past that edge. So actually this is working perfectly. I'm just an idiot because I was expecting this to also pull me towards the center like I was wanting. It's not doing that. So I guess then the centering force should... I guess the centering force would just always be a constant deceleration and push towards the center. Because obviously, if I'm adding force to put... Like, if I'm going like this, and my player is... You know, we're gonna make this a freakishly tall zip, or not zip, grab lift. Like, my mind's still on zip lines. You know, if we make this a freakishly tall one, if I'm constantly spinning around this circle, like, yes, I will naturally come down to, like, I will slow down to a crawl, but, like, I feel like I'm gonna want some deceleration force as well as centering. We can try just some centering force and see what happens, but... Oh gosh, the rendering of the spline mesh is getting weird. We'll try it. Get centering force. Yeah, I guess for centering force, it's just a constant force, so we basically just need the location. And we can copy this. And we can copy this. Because we want to get the unit direction vector from the location to the center. And then from there, we can... From there, we just multiply that by a constant force, which in this case would be like, let's go with 200, but we also have to multiply it by another 2. Return. Why did I forget the name of that node? And then in here, we just get centering force, throw in the layer location like normal, and add this with the force along that. Let's see how bad this goes. Yeah, basically as I thought. Yeah, I'm basically always going to be... I'm always going to be in that kind of perfect loop around the center. Like... because that's also kind of how the grappling hook works. The grappling hook, it's always applying direction, but it's never slowing you down. So that's why with the grappling hook, you get this nice swinging around corners, because even if I'm looking at the hook, it's always going to be spinning me around. So that's basically the same thing that's happening here. It's always pointing me or pushing me into the center, but since I already have velocity in this direction, I'm moving this direction and this direction. Oh gosh. But I'm moving this direction and this direction, so every frame I'm kind of getting pushed around in this circle. So I will need some braking force. Which for now, we will just multiply by the exact same value. Velocity. Now... vector. Now we use the same code, the unit direction vector from... Ooh, how do we do this? Don't we need to find the tangent? We need to find the right vector, because we only want to apply deceleration in the opposite of the direction that we're applying our centering force. So we want to find the tangent at this location. And then we can do the cross product between the tangent and this unit direction vector. And then we do the dot product of this and the player's velocity. And then we multiply this by the negated vector of that. And then we normalize. Multiply this by the same value and then add these together. That's a whole bunch of nonsense I just coded. I have no idea if this is going to work. I just threw some random nodes together. So we'll see. I don't know if it's working. You know what? Let's make this 5 meters a second. We'll make this one also 5 meters. I don't think this is doing what I think it's doing, but we're gonna debug it. Debug, draw line. Start is going to be the center. And then the end is going to be the center plus whatever this cross product result is, and we want to multiply this by... Hey, I love my spaghetti, okay? We'll multiply this by 500. We'll do this as pink color. 0 time with 1 thickness. So in theory... Okay, that is returning the value I was thinking it was returning. So... Now, I think what the issue is, I was expecting it to be normalized. Because I can tell by the length of that debug line. Actually, I'm going to make that thickness thick. Yeah, so now that's the right thickness. Which, see, I don't necessarily hate this spiraling effect, but I feel like if the centering value is 1, the player should just get centered. I don't think it should be doing any of this crap. Which, now, if you're not looking down, it's not that... But, okay. Freaking ballerina over here. Oh my gosh. He's beginning to believe. Da na 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 na. Play the color. Oh my gosh. What is this rotation rate? Oh my goodness. It's necessary. Anyway. So yeah. Now the question is, okay, we need to debug the player's velocity, so we need to debug we're gonna debug this. So we're going to take the location plus the normalized value of this, and then we're going to negate this instead. I know this just looks like a bunch of spaghetti. Trust me, I promise you, I mostly know what I'm doing. Alright? Just have faith in me. In theory, this line should point in the direction of my player's velocity that we're trying to slow down. So this should point to a tangent point along the circle. Which... it is very much not. That's pointing towards the center of the circle. That's where the issue is arising. The dot product of the velocity with this cross product should be returning Am I crazy? Oh. I am crazy. I did in fact not know what I was doing. Okay. Now in theory this should be drawing a line. Not at all. Interesting. Why is that? So if we drag this cross product in, yeah, that looks right. We plug in the See, I'm not worried about this. If we plug in the velocity. Oh. Because I'm an idiot. It would kind of help if we plugged in the velocity. So this basically is just getting 0. Alrighty. In this case, in theory, it should work. Oh, and yeah, that did work. It did indeed function. Alright. Now that that's done, we can start messing around with parameters. Yeah, so, alright. What if we just set these to something like really freakishly high? Like, the braking is set to something like... See, but now I'm starting to think, do I want this to be a setting? I suppose, yes, I should have this as a setting. Goodness gracious. Bruh. Like, the issue is different forces are going to feel differently, so the thing that I'm thinking about is how do I control this with just a 0 to 1 slider? Obviously, I can just multiply this at the end of this force chain, but like that means I have to find a good value that works for 1, because obviously multiplying this by 0 is going to be 0 force, but like what value do I just find an arbitrary value that works for 1? Or that's on. Okay. So just like I did with the edge deceleration, where the edge deceleration is multiplied by the center of strength. I just realized I don't even know how this is working how I intended. How in the world is this working how I intended? What? Because this is always just negating your velocity in this direction, but it works. Like, I'm not gonna worry about it because it does work. Okay, we're gonna test them. Because obviously, if I run at this at an angle, I get this, you know, fishbowl, toilet bowl, whatever you want to call it effect, this like spiraling around. But if I go directly into it, yeah, I immediately come to a stop. So technically this is not working how I intended it to. Because it should be multiplying that braking factor by the distance, by your distance from the center. So, which should just be as easy as doing this. So now this should let me travel past the center a little. Yeah, this should let me travel past the center, but then if I ever get close to the edge, it decelerates. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. That decelerates me a little too fast for my life. But I guess that is the whole centering factor. Actually, now I should probably test the edge version with that in mind. Okay, it's basically the same. A little different, but it's basically the same. Now for the centering force, I can do the same thing where it will basically just negate all your velocity, but then we still need an amount of velocity to pull them to the center, and that's something that we can't just negate, because that still has to be an over time thing. So I guess we just find a really fast value that we like. Because, okay, if we want to convert a force to an impulse, we take the delta time, we do 1 divided by the delta time, and then because of GMC, we need it for some reason to multiplied by 100, and that should put in our, that should completely negate it. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That felt about right. I think. Try that again. Yeah, it literally negated our velocity instantly. Okay, so that works for the braking. And then what we also want for the... I don't know the exact math for not causing that, like, ping-ponging that's happening when we're, like, going back and forth, because it's just always multiplying this. So I guess we could do a multiplication of the distance. If we take the distance, essentially do the same thing we did here to figure out the distance. And then we use this value. Oh, shoot. No, that's times 100. Come on. Good. We then take this clamped float and this should be a value between 0 and 1. So we just, in theory, throw that in there. And as we get closer to the center of the grav lift, it should. I mean, yeah, that feels fine. So now, if we smack a good old centering strength multiplication into both of these, then that's modifying, or that's being modified by centering strength. This one is being modified by centering strength. Okay, in theory, grav lift code is technically finished. So with the centering strength of 1, we kind of get thrown to the center, and we do ping pong around a little bit. I can mess around with that at some point. I'm not worried about it. And then, oh goodness, we set this centering strength to 0. We should just get the same effect of before, where we kind of just go through it. And indeed, that is exactly what happens. So far it's working. So let's go with the centering strength of like 0.5. Let's just get a nice happy middle ground. No. I mean, that's feels for this size of grav lift, and I think that's where this setting will really come in handy, is just for the grav lift radius. Now, maybe that's something that we can multiply some of these strengths by the radius. That way it also feels a little more consistent no matter the radius. But maybe for this radius, you know, we want something like 0.25. Realistically, now that I'm thinking about it, we should multiply these things by the radius. That way it directly scales. But, dang, even at like 0.25, it still feels a little too... I would imagine at 0.25, it would just slow us down before we get to the other... Like, if we're entering from this side, I figured it would just, like, slow us down a bit before we exited the other side, but it still just slows us down completely. Even 0.1 doesn't let us out. That's crazy. So, something... Maybe it's the centering force. Let's try it. Let's try getting rid of the centering force and seeing if that lets us out. No, it's not the centering force. Interesting. Okay, let's get the edge deceleration force. It's gonna. Dang, so that edge deceleration force. That doesn't make sense. Because this is basically the same code that I used for braking and like tire friction for vehicles. Because in theory, with a centering force of 0.1, it should slow you down by 10% every frame. That's how it should be working. But I guess 10% every frame. Well, no, because that should be 10% a second. Let's go really low, like 0.01. Oh gosh, what